The U.S. retail sector is facing a supply chain nightmare before Christmas. A myriad of disruptions is threatening to derail retailers' prospects and push hundreds of thousands of businesses over the edge. The latest data is doing little to calm nerves amongst industry executives. Estimates show that due to worsening port congestion, if goods aren't off a boat by now, it's highly unlikely that they'll make it onto store shelves before the beginning of the holiday season, which may result in significantly lower profits for retailers and small businesses in the most important shopping season of the year. America's supply chain crisis, which has driven prices to decade highs and has made a wide range of goods harder to find, will stretch well past the holidays, compounding financial woes U.S. businesses have been facing over the past 18 months. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach handle around 40% of all U.S. container imports, but given the unprecedented backlog of containers, they are not operating at full capacity. According to Axios last Tuesday morning, at least half of the visible terminal cranes were standing upright, which means they were not removing containers from ships. Millions of containers are parked on rail yards waiting to get unloaded, but there aren't enough trucks to remove all of the containers from the yards, which means cranes are forced to stop removing containers from ships, and waiting times for docking and unloading are extending up to 45 days. The situation is being aggravated by a labor shortage, including both truck drivers and terminal mechanics, crowded warehouses, and an outdated system that requires trucks to pick up a specific container within a specific time window with no margin for error. On top of that, many more big issues are looming on the horizon. Soon the labor contract, representing nearly 15,000 West Coast port workers, is going to expire. Supply chain workers have been struggling with low wages and exceedingly long work hours for months on end, and many of them are reaching a breaking point. Experts argue that this may be a very difficult negotiation, especially because shipping companies are recording massive profits, but workers' pay hasn't been readjusted accordingly. In 2014, poor negotiations resulted in prolonged port shutdowns. It was pretty bad back then, but it can be even more severe this time, given the existing backups. Additionally, the International Maritime Organization is introducing new rules that require ships to reduce their carbon footprints. However, the only way to meet these goals right now, while new technologies and fuels are still being developed, is slowing down shipping activity, meaning that delivery delays are likely to be even longer from now on. The same problems plaguing ship unloading are also affecting ship reloading. Now, considering that it's taking up to 6 weeks to unload a container, some ships are leaving without enough empty containers, which is impacting the amount of cargo Asian countries can send to U.S. ports again. At this point, there's a reverse logjam forming in Asia's ports. Meanwhile, in America, more than 160 cargo ships carrying millions of containers are stuck outside of the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. 20 are waiting for a slot at the ports of New York and New Jersey, and 33 cargo ships are stopped at the port of Savannah, and that's according to marinetraffic.com. The complex logistics of unloading the ships and getting their containers onto trucks that will drive them to warehouses and stores across the country means that all of the goods that are still stuck at ports won't make it to store shelves by the end of the year. Therefore, hundreds of thousands of Christmas gifts will arrive too late for the holidays, but that doesn't mean the price of those delayed goods will be any lower when they're finally on the reach of consumers. Prices will continue to rise in the near future. In fact, as of now, with Black Friday and Cyber Monday fast approaching, 70% of U.S. retailers are warning there will be fewer deals for shoppers by as much as 75%. Supply chain bottlenecks are driving inflation significantly up, and this Thanksgiving, Americans will feel the impact of this crisis at the dinner table. The American Farm Bureau Federation's annual survey showed that families are spending $53.31 on a holiday dinner for 10. That's a 14% surge from last year's $46.90. The price of turkeys also shot up, jumping by 24% from 2020. Several factors have contributed to the increase in the average cost of this year's Thanksgiving dinner, explained AFBF senior economist Veronica Nye. These include dramatic disruptions to the U.S. economy and supply chains over the last 20 months, inflationary pressure throughout the economy, difficulty in predicting demand during the health crisis, and high global demand for food, particularly meat. Higher shipping costs are also weighing on that equation. According to a new study released by the UN, soaring shipping prices can hike the prices of consumer goods by over 10% in 2022. UNCTAD's analysis shows that the current surge in container freight rates, if sustained, can increase global import price levels by 11%, the United Nations report said Thursday. The container shipping cost surge would also drag down growth in major economies, the analysis added. Most big U.S. retailers, such as Walmart and Target, are already struggling to ensure inventory amid the growing supply chain chaos. But large companies can afford to charter their own cargo ships to get goods to the right place at the right time. Small retailers and small business owners, on the other hand, can't afford to do the same, and they're heading to the last quarter of 2021 facing a lot of uncertainty. Executives of the industry are extremely nervous about the logistical challenges threatening the very existence of some smaller businesses that just got past the worst effects of the recession. The skyrocketing price of ocean freight is adding pressure on most cargo shippers, but particularly on the smaller players that don't have the money or enough product volume to offset rapidly rising costs, extended delays, or to avoid transportation problems. Over the past 12 months, the cost of shipping a container from Asia to the U.S. West Coast climbed over 500%. In a recent interview with CNBC, Traeger CEO Jeremy Andrus said that rising shipping expenses were a major reason for his company's declining profit margin in its third quarter. Bringing a 40-foot container from Asia to the U.S. 12 months ago was about $1,500. Today, you're spending upwards of $30,000, and we're certainly averaging close to $10,000, Andrus exposed. Our inventory is big and heavy. It takes up a lot of container space, and so we're particularly sensitive to transportation costs, he continued. Experts specialized in troubled companies are warning that another massive wave of bankruptcies is looming, given that financially impaired businesses are likely to experience more hardships than those that have the capacity to hire more warehouse workers or even charter their own ships to cope with the turbulence. And as the most important shopping season of the year approaches, this is a make or break time for retailers. Anything retail-based that struggled over the past couple of years is hoping to have a gangbusters holiday season, explained Lucy Queskin, a restructuring partner at law firm Mayer Brown. Those are the companies that it's going to affect the most. Last year, hundreds of thousands of businesses closed doors for good across the nation. Bankruptcy filings hit the highest point since the Great Depression. This year, the survival of hundreds of thousands more companies is still on the line, according to bankruptcy professionals who have been helping overly indebted businesses to reduce their balance sheet to live and fight another day. In a recent Bloomberg piece, they said that the current supply chain challenges mean that many of these companies will be gone over the next 18 to 24 months. And unfortunately, a new analysis published by the spend management specialist Coupa is making everyone in the sector even more nervous. The study found that U.S. retailers must brace for revenue losses as high as 20% due to worsening supply chain issues. Over the past 18 months, retailers already recorded $68 billion in losses. Now at least two-thirds, or nearly 63% of retailers, are concerned that the current disruptions will hit Christmas revenues and generate more painful losses ahead. Some of the drop in revenue is happening because inventory remains unavailable, but thousands of products never make it to the stores or warehouses because they get stolen at ports. Delivery delays are actually giving thieves opportunities to steal from containers. According to CargoNet, which tracks supply chain thefts, they say thieves are targeting electronics and household goods. The more that a supply chain in general is backed up, the more cargo you're going to have sitting around, and that creates a bigger opportunity for thefts, highlighted Scott Cornell, traveler's theft specialist. NBC News reported this week that there are thousands of boxes spread along railroad tracks in Los Angeles. They appeared to have fallen or have been thrown from cargo containers hauled by Union Pacific trains, the news outlet reported. Thieves are targeting electronics and household goods, CargoNet says. From January to September this year, roughly $45 million in cargo thefts were reported. In 2020, over $68 million worth of goods were stolen. As winter approaches and surveillance becomes more sparse, CargoNet says it expects theft to remain elevated into the final quarter of this year and into early 2022. In fact, extreme weather during the coming months is the latest threat to our collapsing chains. The storm season will bring high winds and choppy seas, potentially causing accidents among ships scrambling for space. Gridlock in California's San Pedro Bay complex is happening at a time when the health crisis has extended the length of time seafarers are serving on ships, leaving them tired, stressed, and potentially more prone to making mistakes, said Mikis Simplis, a professor at the City University of Hong Kong Law School and a specialist in maritime law. He added, ship congestion can increase the possibility for mishaps even during regular winter storms. In the first few months of 2021, stormy seas resulted in the loss of 3,000 shipping containers, according to the Alliance Safety and Shipping Review for 2021. And given that the California storms have already begun, if things are chaotic right now, there will be much more turmoil in the coming weeks and months. So, you should prepare accordingly, because the shortages and price increases we've experienced so far are just a hint of the devastating crisis we will be facing this winter. When it comes to 2022, you should prepare for the worst before things spin out of control, especially when considering that our economy and essentially all of our other important systems are falling apart all around us. Things are only gonna get harder from this point forward, and our society is about to be crushed by a crisis most people are totally unprepared for.